guys, and welcome back to Mental Health Mondays. Now today's topic that we are going to be covering is how to stop self-harming for good. It's something that I have struggled with a lot in the past, and I've talked about it quite a bit in videos. Now these tips might not work for everyone, but I do really hope that they help you. Without further ado, let's get into it. So tip number one for me is it's all about breaking the habit. The urges subside over time if you put measures into place. And the way that I did this, the way I broke the habit, was literally just finding distractions and substitutions. The less you do it, the less you feel like you want to do it. You can substitute self-harm by doing things like punching a punch bag or punching a pillow, or some people like to squeeze ice cubes. You can put your face in a bowl of like cold icy water. You could eat something really spicy. Take a really cold shower. Another really good one is drawing on your body. Some people like to write words of how they're feeling. Some people just like to draw like pretty flowers and whatnot on the place where they would self-harm. As for distraction, I feel like a lot of emotions can arise with self-harm. You can feel anger, you can feel self-hatred, you can feel sad, you can feel scared, and it's all about analysing how you feel and then putting that distraction into place. So for example, for an emotion like anger, the things that you would do would be similar to what I just suggested, like exercise, hit stuff, scream, sing and dance, whatever. But if you're feeling sad and vulnerable, I think it's important to take care of yourself in that moment. So wrap a blanket around you, stroke a pet, have a really nice bath, do some breathing exercises, or just listen to like calming music. If you're feeling, for example, numb and you're self-harming to kind of just feel something, then useful techniques can be kind of putting an elastic band around your wrist and pinging it. Again, ice cubes, cold shower, smelling something with a really strong odour just to kind of bring you back into the moment. So tip number two is all about putting measures into place. If you know that there are specific times or specific triggers for your self-harm. I think it's so important to be able to kind of analyse and work out your pattern of self-harm, because once you kind of know it, it makes it a lot easier to kind of stop. So first of all is to ask yourself, is there a time that you hurt yourself at more often? So for me that would be the evenings, because that would be when I was alone, and I don't know, like just before you go to sleep is like prime time for just sitting there overthinking things. So it was always important that I kind of kept myself busy, and I still do this now, either watch TV or read a book or like meditate or something, just to kind of take your mind off things. And I am grateful for those friends who have been there at kind of like 2 a.m. when I've been feeling like I want to hurt myself, and they've managed to like talk me out of it. The second one is, do you self-harm in a specific place? So for me it would mainly be my bedroom, because that's where I had all my tools. It's where I could like close myself off. It's difficult when it's at night and you kind of have to sleep in your bedroom, but try to kind of avoid the area. So for me, I would spend my evenings, say, downstairs watching TV with my family, and I'd only come up to bed when I felt tired enough, and then I'd start like my bedtime routine to keep myself occupied so I wouldn't self-harm. But again, it's just important to recognise and just try and break the habits, because it does become a really kind of ritualized thing, which is the next question, and that is, do you have a ritual around your self-harm? So for me, I had everything in my bedroom. So I would go through a ritual of sorts. It's all about kind of taking away things so your ritual isn't as easy. So like taking away, say, stuff to clean yourself with. If I'd like run out of tissues or whatever, then I'd be like, oh, I can't be bothered to deal with the aftermath of it. And it sounds silly, but that actually in turn stopped me from doing it. And the final thing is, do you use certain tools to self-harm? Yes, obviously, like if you want to self-harm, you're gonna self-harm. Even when I was in hospital and everything like gets taken away from you, like you still obviously find things if you want to, but it does make it a lot harder if you don't have blades or whatever around you to kind of tempt you. So what my parents did is locked all the sharps in our house away in a drawer. They also got a locked meds cabinet. Some people, if they're feeling strong, might like to flush their blades. Even if you're not feeling strong enough to like get rid of them, just maybe make them as inaccessible as possible. So number 3 is all about using your rational mind and taking kind of practical steps forward to look after yourself. The thing is with self-harm is that it thrives off you overthinking and being irrational. For me, my rational mind has been the biggest saviour. For example, like over the past couple of years, my rational mind has been able to overpower these thoughts that come into my head. What you want to do is ensure that this rational mind takes over anytime you have an urge to self-harm. That way you can kind of challenge these horrible thoughts when they do arise and actually counteract them. So for example, you might think that you're worthless and your rational mind can come along and say, actually no, I'm not worthless. I might feel it at this moment in time, but I am definitely not worthless. I am loved. I am a special individual human being, and a strong one at that. It's really helped me kind of realise that self-harming isn't gonna help anything in the long term. It's more hassle than it's worth. Like when I say self-harming, obviously there are loads of different forms of it. For example, if I'd been tempted to overdose, I would just think like it's really not worth it, it's not going to get me anywhere, it's going to make me feel really ill, and I'm just going to either end up in A&E or just end up having like a sick day in bed throwing up all day. I've been there before. It hasn't solved anything, it just makes things worse. And instead focus your energy on helpful things that are actually going to help you, so practical ways that you can help yourself stay well. So make sure you're getting as much sleep as you possibly can, make sure you're getting some form of exercise, eating as well as you can, like feeding your body, and also socializing and making sure you're not isolating yourself. Tip number 4 is to get therapy to deal with the issues behind self-harm. I learned to be able to pinpoint exactly what would trigger my self-harm. In these situations, you need to always remember that you have a choice in how you react, even if you feel like it's literally once you have that trigger, it's a slippery slope down to self-harm. You do have a choice in how you react to situations. For me, it was all about kind of breaking that cycle. So getting help for this and talking to a professional who can kind of put it down in words and make you see that you're kind of not alone. What I did with the professionals that I was seeing was write down what happened in turn. So give an example from that week. Say someone said something that upset me, and then you draw an arrow to kind of how that made you feel, and then you draw an arrow on kind of the thoughts that would follow, and then you draw an arrow to, you know, the actions that would follow after that. But your thoughts, they don't always lead to actions. That takes you yourself to actually react to those thoughts in your head. And as difficult as it is, like another technique is to just kind of sit with the thoughts and realize that as horrible as they are, they will subside and they cannot hurt you physically. It's just putting measures into place to break this cycle. Say at the beginning, when a trigger might arise, you choose to react to it in a different way. Use your rational mind, challenge it, or just sit with the thoughts, whatever technique you might decide to use. So the final tip is one of the most important tips, and that is to not beat yourself up when you do it. I get so many people come to me and say, oh, like I've relapsed, like it's the end of the world. In self-harm recovery, you're going to, like it's just a given, and that's fine. It's all about, again, how you react, how you pick yourself up from that relapse, because it's so easy to just let this act of self-harm feed into the whole, oh, I'm a failure, I'm so worthless, like I couldn't even like hold off from self-harming for this amount of time. Instead of thinking like that, just think, okay, like it happened. How can I now move on from this and put measures in place so that this doesn't necessarily happen next time a trigger arises? Yes, it was irrational, but you did what you thought was necessary at that point to take care of yourself and your emotions. And as long as you recognize that that's not the right way to do things and it's not going to help, that's fine. You just need to find a safer method to cope with your emotions. Like I said at the very beginning, it's about breaking the habit. And the thing is, with me, I went, say, like a day without self-harming, and then went a few days, and then went a week, I then went a few weeks, and then went a month, and then I might have had a bad week and I self-harmed a few times that week. Instead of thinking, oh no, like I'm back where I was, it's not, because you've made that progress. Just make sure you carry on and, you know, just try and make it longer and longer and longer periods without going back to it. I really hope these tips have helped you. And if you want to ask me any more questions on specifics, then all my social medias will be in the description below. Don't forget to thumbs this up if you did find it helpful. And if you're new to my channel, then don't forget to subscribe. I always love hearing from you guys in the comments as well. And I will see you all very, very soon. Goodbye!